The Eternal Husband by Fyodor Dostoevsky. The Eternal Husband explores the psychological tension between Velchaninov, a disillusioned man, and Pavel Pavlovich, the widower of Velchaninov's former lover, Natalia. When Pavel confronts Velchaninov, the latter is forced to confront his guilt over their shared past and the possibility that he fathered Pavel's deceased daughter, Lisa. Pavel's obsessive grief and erratic behavior create an uneasy relationship filled with veiled accusations and power struggles. Through their toxic dynamic, Dostoevsky delves into themes of guilt, jealousy, and unresolved conflict, revealing the deep scars left by betrayal and the inescapable consequences of past transgressions. Let's deep dive into the book. Velchaninov's Life of Ennui. The novella begins with Velchaninov, a middle-aged man, reflecting on his current state of lethargy and dissatisfaction. Once a man of passion and ambition, he now finds himself drifting through life, burdened by a sense of purposelessness. Velchaninov's health is failing, and he suffers from insomnia, which drives him to wander the streets of St. Petersburg, haunted by fragmented memories of his past. His stagnant life changes when he notices a strange man following him through the streets of St. Petersburg. This encounter sets in motion a series of events that will force him to confront his buried past. The arrival of Pavel Pavlovich. Velchaninov's mysterious stalker eventually reveals himself as Pavel Pavlovich Trusotsky, the widower of Natalia, a woman with whom Velchaninov had an affair years earlier. Pavel's disheveled appearance and strange demeanor make an unsettling impression on Velchaninov. Initially, Pavel seems eager to befriend him, but his awkwardness and erratic behavior hint at underlying tensions. Velchaninov is both repelled and fascinated by Pavel, whose presence begins to stir Velchaninov's guilt and unease. The reappearance of someone tied to his illicit past foreshadows a confrontation with the consequences of his long-forgotten actions. Uncovering the truth about Lisa. As their interactions deepen, Pavel reveals that his 9-year-old daughter, Lisa, has recently died. Velchaninov becomes haunted by the possibility that Lisa was the child of his affair with Natalia, though this remains ambiguous. Pavel's grief is evident as he recounts Lisa's tragic death, subtly hinting at his suspicions about her paternity. This revelation forces Velchaninov to confront not only his past, but also the devastating consequences of his actions. The shared pain over Lisa's loss deepens the psychological tension between the two men, tying them together in a web of guilt, grief, and unresolved conflict. Pavel's obsessive grief. Pavel's obsessive love for his late wife, Natalia, dominates his life and defines his interactions with Velchaninov. Despite her infidelity, Pavel idealizes Natalia, portraying her as a perfect, almost saintly figure. His inability to move on from her death is evident in his erratic behavior, frequent emotional outbursts, and fixation on Velchaninov. Pavel's grief becomes a weapon in their interactions, as he oscillates between seeking comfort and inflicting guilt. Velchaninov, meanwhile, is drawn into this obsessive dynamic, unsure whether to pity Pavel or fear him. The power struggle between Velchaninov and Pavel. The relationship between Velchaninov and Pavel evolves into a subtle yet intense psychological battle. Pavel's intrusive visits and veiled accusations keep Velchaninov on edge, while Velchaninov's unease and guilt give Pavel the upper hand. Both men seek to assert dominance, yet their interactions are marked by a deep mutual dependence. Pavel manipulates Velchaninov through emotional appeals and passive-aggressive comments, often leaving Velchaninov flustered and unable to maintain his composure. Despite his attempts to distance himself, Velchaninov finds himself increasingly entangled in Pavel's toxic emotional web. The announcement of Pavel's new marriage. The dynamic shifts when Pavel announces his plan to remarry, an unexpected move that puzzles Velchaninov. The bride is an innocent and naive young woman, barely out of her teens, whom Pavel seems to have chosen as a replacement for Natalia. Velchaninoff is initially surprised and puzzled by the news, but as events unfold, he begins to sense Pavel's ulterior motives and questions whether the marriage is driven by love or a need to regain control over his life. This announcement heightens the tension as Velchaninoff begins to question Pavel's sanity and intentions. The tense journey to the wedding. Pavel insists that Velchaninoff accompany him to the countryside for the wedding. The journey is marked by discomfort and unease as the underlying tensions between the two men become more pronounced. Pavel's behavior grows increasingly erratic, oscillating between nervous excitement and bitter sarcasm. Velchaninoff, meanwhile, is overcome by a mix of dread and morbid curiosity about the impending marriage. The trip symbolizes their shared descent into the unresolved conflicts and emotional turmoil that bind them. The climactic confrontation. Upon reaching their destination, Pavel and Velchaninoff's relationship reaches a breaking point. Pavel's veiled insinuations finally give way to open accusations about Velchaninoff's affair with Natalia and the possibility that Lisa was his child. The confrontation is emotionally charged, as Pavel vents years of pent-up anger and grief, while Velchaninoff is forced to confront the full weight of his guilt. This climactic moment lays bare the raw emotions and unresolved pain that have driven their interactions, leaving both men shaken and irrevocably changed. Pavel's departure and Velchaninoff's reflection. Following the confrontation, Pavel abruptly leaves Velchaninoff's life, moving forward with his wedding plans. Velchaninoff, left alone, reflects on their tumultuous relationship and the emotional scars it has left. He is haunted by thoughts of Lisa, Natalia, and the impact of his past actions on Pavel's life. Though relieved by Pavel's absence, Velchaninoff cannot shake the feeling of unfinished business. His introspection reveals a man deeply affected by guilt and regret, yet uncertain of how to seek redemption or closure. The cyclical nature of the eternal husband. The novella concludes with Velchaninoff contemplating the concept of the eternal husband, a man doomed to live in the shadow of a more dominant figure, unable to escape the pain of betrayal and loss. Pavel's obsessive devotion to Natalia and his need for validation define his identity, trapping him in a cycle of grief and revenge. Velchaninoff, too, is caught in his own cycle of guilt and avoidance. This theme suggests that both men are prisoners of their past, bound together by their shared suffering and unresolved emotional conflicts. Let's meet together the main characters of the book. Velchaninoff is the novella's protagonist, a disillusioned middle-aged man grappling with guilt and existential despair. Once a confident and self-indulgent man, he now lives a stagnant, aimless life plagued by insomnia and health issues. His encounter with Pavel Pavlovich forces him to confront the consequences of a long-forgotten affair with Natalia, Pavel's late wife. Velchaninoff's introspective nature allows the reader to explore themes of guilt, moral failure, and the psychological toll of unresolved conflicts. Throughout the novella, he oscillates between pity, fear, and guilt toward Pavel, ultimately embarking on a journey of self-reflection and moral reckoning. Pavel Pavlovich Trusotsky, the eternal husband of the title, is a widower tormented by the memory of his late wife, Natalia, and her betrayal. Weak-willed and obsessive, he embodies the archetype of a man perpetually trapped in the role of a devoted, submissive spouse. His erratic behavior, veiled accusations, and intrusive visits reveal his deep emotional scars and inability to move past his wife's infidelity. Pavel's character serves as a psychological foil to Velchaninoff, highlighting themes of obsessive love, jealousy, and the lingering impact of betrayal. His suffering reflects the corrosive power of unresolved emotional wounds. Natalia Vasilievna, though deceased, looms large over the novella as the link between Velchaninoff and Pavel. She was a complex and enigmatic woman who engaged in an affair with Velchaninoff while remaining married to Pavel. Her infidelity, charm, and eventual death leave both men emotionally scarred and tethered to her memory. Natalia's role in the story underscores themes of love, betrayal, and the enduring influence of the past on the present. She is a symbol of unattainable desire and the pain of unresolved relationships. Lisa is Pavel and Natalia's young daughter, who dies shortly before the events of the novella. Her death serves as a critical turning point, intensifying Pavel's grief and suspicions about her paternity. Velchaninov becomes consumed by the possibility that Lisa was his child, adding another layer of guilt and regret to his interactions with Pavel. Although Lisa never appears directly in the story, her presence haunts both men, symbolizing lost innocence and the tragic consequences of their entangled pasts. Nadia is the young, naive bride whom Pavel plans to marry following Natalia's death. She is described as innocent and inexperienced, a stark contrast to Natalia's complexity and cunning. Pavel's decision to remarry Nadia reflects his attempt to reclaim normalcy and control in his life, though his motivations are questionable. Nadia represents a potential new beginning for Pavel, but her presence underscores his desperate attempt to recreate a semblance of normalcy. She becomes an unwitting participant in Pavel's struggle to reconcile with his past and the toxic dynamics that continue to define him. Let's explore together the main themes and concepts of the book. Obsessive love and jealousy. One of the central themes of The Eternal Husband is obsessive love and its destructive power. Pavel Pavlovich's overwhelming devotion to his late wife Natalia dominates his life, even after her death. His obsessive love manifests as jealousy, directed at Velchaninov, the man who betrayed him by having an affair with Natalia. Pavel's inability to let go of the past leads to erratic and self-destructive behavior, creating a toxic cycle of grief and fixation. This theme explores the psychological toll of unrequited or betrayed love and its potential to consume and destabilize an individual. Guilt and moral reckoning. Velchaninov's journey throughout the novella is deeply intertwined with the theme of guilt and the need for moral reckoning. His past affair with Natalia and the possibility that he fathered her child weigh heavily on his conscience. This guilt resurfaces with the arrival of Pavel, forcing Velchaninov to confront the consequences of his actions. The novella examines how unresolved guilt shapes Velchaninov's interactions and internal struggles, suggesting that true moral reckoning requires self-awareness and an acceptance of one's flaws and past transgressions. The eternal husband archetype. The concept of the eternal husband serves as a symbolic theme in the novella, representing a man eternally trapped in the role of a betrayed and devoted spouse. Pavel Pavlovich embodies this archetype, continually defined by his submissive and dependent relationship with Natalia. Even after her death, Pavel's identity remains tied to his role as her husband, unable to break free from the shadow of her betrayal. This theme explores the psychological and social dynamics of such relationships, highlighting the enduring effects of power imbalances and unresolved emotional wounds. Power dynamics and psychological manipulation. The novella delves into the shifting power dynamics between Velchaninov and Pavel, exploring how each man attempts to assert dominance over the other. Pavel uses emotional manipulation, such as guilt-tripping and veiled accusations, to keep Velchaninov off balance, while Velchaninov struggles to maintain composure and control. Their interactions become a psychological battleground, revealing the complex ways in which guilt, resentment, and insecurity manifest in human relationships. This theme underscores the destructive potential of unresolved conflicts and the toxic interplay of power and vulnerability. The consequences of unresolved conflict. Unresolved conflict lies at the heart of the eternal husband, shaping the lives and psyches of both Velchaninov and Pavel. Their shared history, marked by betrayal and loss, creates a lingering tension that neither man can escape. The novella examines how unresolved emotions such as anger, guilt, and grief perpetuate cycles of suffering and hinder personal growth. This theme highlights the importance of confronting and resolving past conflicts to achieve emotional closure and move forward, a lesson both characters ultimately struggle to learn. Let's talk about the author. Fyodor Dostoevsky was a Russian novelist, essayist, and philosopher, widely regarded as one of the greatest writers in world literature. His works are known for their deep psychological insight, philosophical explorations, and vivid depictions of Russian society. Arrested in 1849 for participating in a political group, Dostoevsky was sentenced to 4 years of hard labor in Siberia, an experience that profoundly influenced his later writing. His major works include Crime and Punishment, The Idiot, Demons, and The Brothers Karamazov. The Eternal Husband, 1870, showcases his mastery of exploring complex human emotions, guilt, and interpersonal power dynamics. Sincere thanks for watching. If you found this summary helpful, consider taking a moment to hit the subscribe button, like or share the video. If you have any feedbacks or book requests, make sure to leave a comment. Regardless, I wish you a great day.